Okay, clickbait title. This is no big announcement that there's a ReScript MCP server or anything. I've been doing some local experiments with an MCP server, and I'm able to feed my LLM so much more context of my current project, and I'm getting very good results, and that's what this video is about. Let's dive in. So I'm in Cursor and I configured an MCP server called ReScript. So it has some extra tool calls it can do, and we'll showcase this all in a bit. Configuration is pretty simple. It is just a JavaScript file and it just runs with button. I vibe coded this whole thing. So I really told it, what do I want? What do I need? And in essence, I just feed it requirements until it did what I wanted it to do. Although the premise is rather simple. So it is able to like churn all this code out without, me needing to fiddle with all the details. So the premise of the MCP server tool is that we store more information in a SQLite database, and that information actually comes from ReScript tools. So if you install ReScript, you also have access to this ReScript tools, which has a doc command. And if you point that to a ReScript file that has been compiled, it will dump some JSON with type tree information. It will have things like your signature of values. It will have modules, types, etc. So all this information we're just trying to scrape first and then use query later on in a MCP tool. I have a little MCP sync command, so there are a lot of flags to this MCP. One starts the actual MCP server, others are just for local debugging. And when we run this sync file, it will look for your ReScript JSON, it will find some packages that it needs to process, it will find ReScript files, modules, etc., and it will in essence run database inserts, upserts to just really grab all the information first. So a quick look at the SQLite schema. Again, I vibe coded this part. I don't care about how the tables are really structured. If it does the job well, I throw away. There's no, this is all just an experiment, but it's fine. I have packages, modules, types, as you would imagine, have relationship tables, all these things, and it stores a lot of information really tailored to my project, so it will hallucinate a lot less. So I added some simple test commands that we can try and see what does this produce. If I do a query all, it's just gonna load all the packages it found. Then it can drill into one of these packages and see, oh, it has all these modules. Some point to a ReScript file, some to a signature file. So it picks up these kind of details. If I then open a module like this, I can see, oh, it has a couple of values. What are the signatures? So we can also do some search. Maybe the LLM was asked to do something React-wise and it needs to do use state. Then it can search for use state. Oh, there's a binding. There actually are two bindings. And it has a suggestion here to do a follow-up call. So, okay, we found this bindings. You might want to do a test value with this. And then you can see the test value gives the exact signature. And then the LLM can just use that information to further reason with that. So now I'm going to give it an example prompt. We're going to create a standalone component that will fetch Pokemon data from the Pokemon API. So it takes an ID as a prop, it needs to do a fetch call, and the fetch will return JSON T. We need to grab some information from the JSON T, so we'll need to do some pattern matching. Basically, I'm telling it what I want, I'm giving it mild pointers, and I'm telling it, hey, use this MCP tool so we can see this thing in action. And if I now run this, you can see all these little things, it's going to do search ReScript tool. It searched for fetch. It found a bunch of results. It will do some other searches. So fetch probably had response in its hits, and then it's going to do what response is. Then it does a get value. It sees oh, there's a global web API fetch. Actually some more in that. So there's some types, web API response type, promise, all these kind of things. So it has a lot of information. It did a lot of tool calls. And if we now go and see, it created two files. Let's take a look. Now, this is just some example code really, but it did do the right thing. It did grab the URL. It was able to figure out that, oh, when you want to use global fetch, that's just, window.fetch. It's in the global package on the web API bindings. It's able to figure out, oh, response, if I need to do the JSON call. I told it that I wanted to use the new dict syntax. So that's a ReScript 12 thing. It grabbed the name and the image URL and then it's kind of made like a cart kind of thing. I'm not asking it to test this, but this is a simple example, and you can see that it got a lot of information right from the tool calls, where it typically, you know, was trained on older data and would have done JS or Belt or all these kind of things, which are slightly older and not, you know, specific to my project now. One last thing I do want to admit, I do have a project MDC, which is like a cursor specific thing where you tell it to have some default context. So in this case, I have like some rules. I say, okay, you're using the latest 12 RC, never use Belt or JS, those are legacy, use JSON-T, use the new dict syntax. And you know, the more examples you give it like that, like, hey, I prefer that you do this over these, dictionary.get calls, which then need to match and match and match. So I did learn it some tricks in advance. So the example that we saw here isn't totally fair, but overall, I've been using this for a couple of weeks now, and I do get a lot better results based on what I actually have versus, you know, what it thinks it has. Okay, the key takeaway of this video is that localized MCP servers can greatly increase context of your project. They're worth investing time in. I'm having a lot of fun experimenting with this, and I do believe it's a step in the right direction to, you know, get more understanding of maybe more niche things like ReScript. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for watching. Until we meet again.